So, good morning. It is morning. Yes, okay. Before I can finish the skirt, I have a ton of embroidery to do, so I thought that I would do a short video on how I got my inspiration and what techniques I'm going to be using and what the general process of embroidering this dress is going to be like. That's what we're going to be working on. The embroidery it's a lot. There's a lot of embroidery. I know that the main outline I want to do with couching. Couching is essentially a process where you lay a thicker embroidery thread on top of the fabric and then use a thinner normal size thread to sew the thicker embroidery thread to the fabric. So the embroidery thread doesn't ever actually go through the fabric except when you are starting and ending a thread. So in order to knot on and off, you have to obviously go through the fabric to hide your threads, but other than that it really just sits on top, and then the working thread is what keeps everything on the fabric, like attached to the fabric. It's going to get a lot of beading and crystals on it, which I have right here. This is how I organize all of my beads and crystals. I bought a bunch from Fire Mountain Gems, and we're just gonna figure out what it looks like as I go. I did a really small sampler. Hello? What's up? You just gonna sit here? You going on the window? Okay, good girl. I've done a little bit of a sampler just to make sure that I like how this looks, and I haven't really done much else besides the couching and a little bit of fill. The fill definitely needs to be a thinner embroidery thread, but I like how the couching looks so far, so I think we're good to keep going. Hannah has really conveniently given a design for the embroidery, so I don't have to come up with my own. If you subscribe to her Patreon, she includes back and detail drawings of a lot of her designs in which she suggests patterns or materials or gives embroidery patterns. For this, she suggests looking at Victorian and Edwardian embroidery, so that is what I did. My inspiration is from a gown by Worth that's at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. It has really heavy embroidery all over the gown and it's absolutely gorgeous. So that is what I mostly took my inspiration from. Obviously the design that she made, but then also using the reference of the Met gown as a kind of way to alter the design so it looks a little bit more historically Victorian than really heavily fantasy, and in a way that is actually embroiderable. Is that a word? In a way that is actually able to be embroidered with the techniques that I want to use. So I printed out the design and then scaled it up to the correct dimensions. And then I took a marker and I just went over parts of it that I didn't like, that I didn't think would suit the embroidery very well, and redrew parts of it in that looked more similar to my inspiration image and would be more well suited to that. The next step is to mark the fabric somehow, right? You have to get your design onto the fabric. The traditional way to do this is to poke a bunch of holes in your pattern to allow for some kind of marking material to fall through. I've actually packed all of my chalk for moving. So I ran to the art store really quick and picked up some soft pastel, and that works really well. So you take your pattern that has all your holes poked in it, and then you lay it on your fabric, color over it with your soft pastel or your chalk. Really the actual traditional way to do it is to put a bunch of loose chalk, not like a pressed chalk, into a bag. You just go like this over and over the holes. It'll push chalk through the holes so that you get a nice connect the dots outline. All of my stuff is packed up, so we're just kind of working with what we've got. I took a scrap piece of fabric and I just rubbed the soft pastel so it would fall through the holes. My way is not the best way because it does cause some shifting, especially on velvet. The dots are not perfectly aligned. Once you've got your connect the dots, then you can take a white colored pencil or whatever colored pencil you need and just connect the dots essentially. So at first when I started this, I thought that it would not transfer to the pile side of the velvet at all, so I was doing all of it on the back and then thread tracing. That was kind of a waste of time. I realized that I can just mark directly onto the pile because my pile is not very tall. I can just transfer everything to the front side, so I don't need to actually do the thread tracing part. It's fine. Once you've got that all traced out, then you can start with the couching. So that's where we're at right now. I've been working on the couching quite a bit. Hopefully I will finish that today. We move 1 week from today actually, so that deadline's coming up. We haven't really found someone to do my studio yet, but we will be hearing from someone today. Hopefully by the time that we move, I will have a studio and I can continue with this, but I'm just gonna keep going with this embroidery and we'll see how it goes. yet. Don't take my thread. baby. Hello? Are you ready? No? Yeah, you ready? Yeah? Oh, my sweet girl. Okay, let's go eat. Let's go eat. No! Are you ready? Yeah? Okay, let's go. You want down? Okay. Okay. Oh, be careful. Okay, so there isn't anything for me to try on this time because the skirt is kind of just a big donut right now still. So it's got embroidery on it, but it's not pleated up into a skirt. So nothing to try on. I wanted to share this embroidery process with you guys because it's going to take so long. I finished the couching on everything, but I haven't finished the beading. I wanted to get this together and on YouTube by Saturday. So I've finished a couple of the motifs so I can show you guys what I'm doing, and then I will just be continuing to finish this for the next week or so. I hope this was kind of inspiring and gave you some ideas if you are doing your own embroidery project. You guys saw my inspiration picture. I studied these inspiration pictures for a couple of days and really tried to incorporate them into Hannah's design and make both of them meld kind of into something that is both historically probable and pretty, obviously, like we want it to be pretty, and also fits into the world of Alice in Wonderland. So I made the embroidery on my mushrooms. It ended up like a little bit squiggly. Actually, a lot of my couching, I think I should have done it with the stitches a little bit closer together so that the lines were smoother. They ended up a little bit wobbly as it is because I was really rushing to get everything done, so I was kind of taking bigger stitches than I would normally and what I probably should have. I think that in the future, if I do this, I will be a little bit more careful and hopefully give myself more time to do all of this. But for this, I actually think it worked out pretty well. I'm thinking mostly of the Disney movie version of Alice, but it is like this weird kind of wavy, trippy aesthetic, and with the mushrooms, the lines on some of them while I was doing the vertical threads, they made the mushrooms end up look a little bit more like wobbly and like not completely there, like they look like they're rippling, which I think was actually a pretty cool effect. While I wish that I could spend more time doing this and not have to rush through it, with what I've got, I think that the imperfections actually helped make this project look more part of the Alice in Wonderland world, so I'm actually pretty happy with that. And you know, that's like a really fun part of sewing, is that you will come up with things that are unexpected and make it so that your project is kind of very uniquely you, and like nobody else will ever make the same mistakes that you do in the way you do, and nobody else will fix them in the way that you do. So I find that is one of my favorite parts of costuming, is the kind of like experimenting and figuring out what you're doing and then making it unique to your own style. Anyways, that's a little bit of a tangent off of what we're talking about actually, but I think it's a good thing to keep in mind anyways. Oh, I never talked about the sequins actually. So you can see in the original Worth gown from the Met that they did use sequins, and sequins were popular. They're not like a new invention or anything by any means. Sequins that were used in Victorian gowns were made of metal, which you can probably find metal sequins now, but I've never seen them personally, and I didn't want to go digging for them. They're probably more expensive than the plastic ones. So as much as I like to not use plastics as much in my costuming, sequins, there's not really a good alternative. And even if I wanted to get metal sequins, I'm not sure that they make them in like an iridescent white color anyways. I wanted to keep the aesthetic of the original Worth piece and use some sequins because there's not really any kind of bead that can mimic what sequins do for texture. So sequins were something that were used in Victorian clothing, and something that I really wanted to bring into this gown, because usually when we think of sequins, we think of like showgirls in Vegas kind of stuff, but they can be used for so much more. So I was really pleased that I was able to work sequins in, and a big tip for using sequins, to keep it from looking really showgirl, or like if you're into anime, like really idol costume, is to use smaller sequins. I think the standard sequins are about 6 millimeters. The ones I'm using are 3 millimeters, which is I think the smallest size that I could find, and it helps it look more delicate than flashy. The biggest substitution that I made from the Worth gown to my Alice dress, I used those bicone beads instead of using rhinestones or like gems, because I don't want to buy real gemstones and set them into my gown. That sounds like a lot of effort, and I don't love how rhinestones look when they're glued onto velvet. I think our pod is getting delivered right now. I'm just gonna talk through it, sorry guys. I don't love how rhinestones look when they're glued onto velvet because they kind of sit on top of the pile rather than being set onto the fabric like you would get with, I don't know, gluing them onto any other fabric. I love rhinestones, I love gluing rhinestones, so like don't get me wrong there. I like use rhinestones on a lot of costumes, but I don't love using them on velvet. I would rather sew beads onto velvet. I also think it's more secure on velvet. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it regarding the costume. We are going to be moving in a couple of days. I'm not 100% certain that my studio is going to be done, so you may or may not see a video from me next week. Who knows? We'll find out. And this embroidery is taking a lot longer than I thought it would. I thought it was only going to take me like maybe 3 days for the couching and then, I don't know, 2 days for the beading. I'm pretty quick at sewing and everything. It's taken me twice as long for everything. Listen to the entirety of the Hunger Games prequel, the Ballad of, I think, Songbirds and Snakes or something. I don't know, it's about President Snow. It's very good, you should read it. Side note. And then I've also started listening to this book called The Starless Sea, but I'm getting through like 2 long audiobooks with this just embroidering project, so we'll see how far I get. The pod is being delivered right now. We're gonna have to start packing that up, and I'm not sure how much sewing I'll be able to get done in the next few days. Best case scenario for my studio, they're starting it this weekend, hopefully, and then they will be getting it done sometime next week once we are moved, but nothing has been going on schedule with this whole thing. So I know that this video was kind of short, didn't cover that much material and didn't cover that much progress, but honestly the embroidery took a lot longer than every other part of this project has taken so far. So while it did not cover that much, technically it covered a lot more in a span of time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, if you want to talk about embroidery some more, if you have any suggestions, like I think it looks kind of blank in some parts. Like it looks like there should be some more going on in a few of the petals and like the middle top part. I don't know. I think it looks a little bit empty, and I might go back in and add some more when I've got a little bit more time. If you think that it should have more, if you have suggestions for what I should do. If you don't think it needs more and you think I should just leave it and stop messing with it, let me know. And if you want to see what this looks like as an actual skirt instead of just a tube of fabric, then subscribe to see more. Alright, I will see you guys hopefully next week, maybe the week after, who knows. Anyways, okay, bye!